So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dharma Talk portion of today's Dharma Talk. Thank you all so much for coming out, and it's wonderful to have you all here this morning for today's practice. Giving our introductory talk this morning is going to be Mark Brenner. Mark Brenner is a senior Dharma teacher and former member of the Board of Trustees here at the Providence Zen Center. He began practicing transcendental meditation in 1976 and has practiced with the Quantum School of Zen since 1988. Mark holds a PhD in clinical social work, is a licensed independent clinical social worker, and professor emeritus at Bridgewater State University. He volunteers as a disaster mental health clinician for the Red Cross, as well as providing resiliency workshops of members of the military and their families. Mark lives in Massachusetts with his wife, is the father of 2 married daughters, and a proud grandfather. And answering questions this morning is going to be Dae Kwang Sanim, Son Sanim, Zen Master. Zen Master Dae Kwang has been a monk since 1987 and received transmission in 1996. Zen Master Dae Kwang has traveled widely, leading retreats throughout North America, Europe, and Asia, including 90-day retreats in Korea. His interests include meditation practices common to Christians and Buddhists. So thank you all for coming, and thank you all so much for your talks this morning.
So good morning, everyone, and good morning, people online, too. So I wanted to talk today about our second great vow. And there were 2 instances that this vow came to mind, and so I want to talk about that, tell you about what happened. So first, for those of you that don't know, we have these 4 vows. And I practice every day, and I say them every day. And they're bodhisattva vows. So so bodhisattva, in our tradition, is someone who, like this being, who decides, okay, I can go to nirvana, but I'm not going to go to nirvana till everybody else goes to nirvana, and so I'll be the last one in. And so that person stays here on this plane until everybody else is in nirvana. So, kind of a high-class guy. And we have these vows, and they're actually in the back of our chanting book. And so the vows are: sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. And the Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. Several years ago, many years ago, I was seeing a therapist. And she knew I was a Zen student, and so I told her, I have practice every morning. I sit every morning. And then I say these vows. And I told her these vows. And she kind of looked at me and like, you got to be crazy. Think about it as a to-do list. Like I have these to-do lists and check, check, check. And so sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. I vow to cut through them all. I mean, it's a kind of a setup. But it's also a direction, and it provides a direction. It provides a direction for our life, and direction is very important. So the second great vow, delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. So I practice here at Providence, and I also practice online. And so when I'm online, we're on Zoom, and for some reason, my Zoom settings default to closed caption. So when I'm on Zoom, closed caption comes up, and there's this transcript that actually comes up about what's being said. And it is amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Well, somewhat amazing. So what happened was, we're saying the 4 great vows. And so we're saying the second one, which is delusions are endless. And I look up at the screen, and it says solutions are endless. And I thought, that's great. I like to solve problems. Solutions are endless. This is wonderful. And then it said, and I vowed to cut through them all. I thought, oh, that's a disappointment. And so then I went for an interview with a teacher after this happened. And I said, the great vow is this, delusions are endless. And then, but Zoom says, solutions are endless. So what's the correct translation of this vow? Which is a kind of an interesting question. And the response was, I want. I want. Which, yeah, I want, yeah. Which is an interesting, it is kind of an interesting point. I want this, I don't want that, I want that, I don't want that. I want to cut through all delusions. And so it's an interesting point. And so that was one instance where this came up. The other instance is I also do online practice with the online sangha. The online sangha is this community like this one, and it was set up in 2017 by a group of Zen teachers here. And it really, it's aimed at people who have no access to a Zen center. So there are people practicing around the world that have no access to a Zen center. And part of this membership is when you sign up, you can actually get a 30-day free membership to try it out, to see if you like it. And part of the 30-day membership is that you get to meet with a teacher and ask questions. And so I'm a senior Dharma teacher, and so I give consulting interviews here, and I also meet with students online to introduce them to the Quantum School of Zen. And so, and I meet with people from South Africa, from Hawaii, from parts of the United States that aren't near a Zen center, from places all around the world. And I was meeting with a student from the Philippines. And after we met, he sent me an email. And he asked me about if he practices Zen, can he still, can he still have passions? Can he still have passions? And that's an interesting question. Because there's this idea about Zen that we're sitting up on this mountain and we have no passions and everything's kind of like, everything's down. Which is actually an interesting question because, so I started practicing, as Diego said, in 1988. And in 1988, when I first started practicing here, we had a different vow, a different translation of the vow back in 1988. Yeah. So the translation back then was solution, not solutions. Passions are endless. Passions are endless. We vow to extinguish them all. And so from 1988 to 1992, it was passions are endless. I vow to extinguish them all. And then there was a meeting of teachers back in 92, and they decided that passions was actually the wrong translation. The original word is kleshas, and kleshas was part of the Sanskrit word, which was translated from Sanskrit into Chinese. And I understand that Chinese doesn't have words, they have characters. And one of the characters for passions is fire. And so there are these fires in the mind. They're also called afflictions, is another translation for that. And so it was passions are endless. And so the teachers decided, no, passions is the wrong word, it's actually delusions. And so now we have delusions are endless. But different traditions, different Zen schools have different translations as well. This is the one that we use. And so the question is, from this student was, passions, can I still have passions? And so my response to him was yes. I mean, passions are, are completely fine. But what's your direction? You need to have a direction. And anything can be used for good or for bad. Passions can be used for good or for bad. And sometimes when we think about passions, we think about, one thing that can come up is anger. And those are actually some of the kleshas, which are greed, anger, and ignorance. And even those have uses as well. So for an example, anger. If my granddaughter were to run out into the road, she's 3 years old, and I would yell at her and grab her and pull her back, the experience for her would be that Grandpa's angry at her, which is not true. I'd be scared. I'd be frightened for her, but it would come across as anger for her. But in that instance, that's an appropriate use of anger, to teach her you don't run out into the street. So all these things can be used, but it depends on your direction. And so these provide a direction for me every day. Sentient beings and numberless. We vow to save them all. As a social worker, that's what we hope to do. Is not, then there's this issue about saving all beings. And saving in a Christian tradition has a different meaning itself. So what we mean here is help people. So how do we help people? And so that's what our direction is. And then there's the also questions, the delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. And then I began thinking, well, if delusions are endless, I wonder if that's a delusion in itself. But that's why we have Zen masters here to answer questions like that. So, so you can either answer that or not answer that at some point. So those are some things I've been thinking about in terms of these vows. And we can also get very, very into our minds, and it's something that I easily can do. But what I see right now is it's actually quite a beautiful day. And so in order to get out of my mind, what I do is actually go outside. So that's what I plan on doing later today. We have a lot of leaves in the yard, and so it's time to clean up the leaves. So thank you all for listening, and enjoy your day.
Thank you.
We'll pass it. Okay. I don't know if it had to be set up special. Okay.
Thank you. So are there any, thank you, very good. I always think of those words are, and Zen teachings are like, traditionally we would say they're like fingers pointing at the moon, and people get attached to the finger and they don't see the moon, which is a problem. So it's not about the words, it's what it's pointing towards, and what it's pointing towards is before thinking. So the simplest way and also the best way, I think, to think about this is there's two kinds of questions. There's thinking questions, like, where is Lecompton? Where is Lecompton?
Where is the Compton?
Lecompton, yeah. Don't know?
No.
Oh, good. So there's thinking questions like that, like you can look it up online or look at a map or something. And then there's before thinking questions. And those are questions that don't have answers that you can blah, 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 blah about, right? So those are all answers to before thinking questions. So actually, the questions themselves, if you read them closely, you'll notice they're phrased in an unusual manner because it doesn't lead you anywhere. You're just left with a question. So that's the way I think about that. So these two kinds of questions, thinking questions and before thinking questions. Like, where do you go when you die? That'd be a before thinking question. Does that make sense? It's great being a Zen teacher. Like he's a senior Dharma teacher, right? Because Dharma teachers don't have a job because you can't teach anything, right? So it's different than being an academic. You were an academic teacher, yes. Yeah. So was I. Yeah, So, any questions?
Forward-thinking questions?
Yes, of course. Those are the best ones. That's why I said outside. What'd you say? Outside the leaves are
Falling.
falling. They're
Yes.
falling.
Okay, I have a question. Mark was talking about passion. Someone asked him about passion.
Passions?
Yeah, about passions. And I feel like in relation to me, like if I don't have passion for my work, whatever I'm doing, then it's just not going to be really developed well. It's something that's sort of necessary to do higher end work.
Right. So the word itself is kind of, I think of it as a meaningless word because it indicates something that ultimately can't be talked about. So what word does it use in there?
Delusions.
Delusion, not passions?
No.
It never talks about passions?
We got rid of that in 1992.
92, okay. But all those words are just pointing at something. So it's important to experience what it's actually pointing at, right? So if I try to define a hot dog for you, I'd say, well, it's got this white bread kind of elongated bun, and then it's got this meat that's wrapped up inside of originally it was a pig's intestine, but nowadays it's something else. I don't even know what it is, right? So I can tell you all that crap, but 5 minutes at, I don't know, where do they sell hot dogs? I don't even know. But 5 minutes at Dunkin' or something will give you an answer that's more than anything I could do, even if I talk for a month. So there the difference is experience versus understanding. So Zen is all about experience. It's not about understanding or belief. So if you look at the religions of the world, the Middle Eastern ones, like Judaism or Islam, or what's the other one? Christianity, right? they tend to lean as teaching devices, is my latest theory, as teaching devices, they lean on understanding, right? So they're going to, you have to believe in God. So there's this famous story, all of you have heard it probably before, but I'll tell it anyway. It's one of the best Zen stories there is. We're sitting in a restaurant in Kentucky. I don't know if you've ever been in Kentucky, but it's slightly more religious on the Christian front than Rhode Island, right? Slightly. And we were in a restaurant, and we were being waited on by, as I started to notice as the meal progressed, we were being waited on by a strong believer in Christianity. And I'm sitting there with a Buddhist monk, you can't miss him because he looks like that, So we're sitting there, and the waiter's getting more and more pissed, and then finally the meal's over. I was grateful for that. And then we went to leave, and as we were leaving, the waiter ran around and stood in front of the exit and pointed at Zen Master Sung-san, that's him, and said, "Do you believe in God?" He's really pissed off. And Zen Master Sung-san just smiled and looked at him with a very kind, gentle look and said, "Of course I believe in God." And then the guy was kind of taken back because he said that. And then Zen Master Sung-san pointed at him and said, "Have you ever met God?" So that's the difference between experience. The point he's making is experience versus belief, right? And the waiter didn't know what the hell to say. And we just zoomed by him and got to the parking lot, got in our car and roared away before any gunfire. So, so that's a very kind of like he and I here today we're not explaining anything to you actually, and we're not telling you to believe anything either. Like, I don't know, if you go to Zen centers much, you'll notice we don't give a crap what you believe, right? So you could be like in Singapore, we have Muslims come, we have, there's a few Christians in Singapore, I think. I don't know exactly where they hide, but they're there. And then most people in Singapore are Buddhist or Hindu or what Western people call Hindu, which is a whole menagerie of stuff. And most people are capitalists, so they're mostly interested in money. And then they come to the Zen Center, but we don't care. I don't care if you're a Muslim or a capitalist. Just come and sit down and look at the floor. It'll be great. So we're encouraging you to experience it for yourself, right? Because it's based on experience, not on belief. So if you look at the interesting thing about what we call Eastern religions, like probably less Confucianism, but Taoism, Buddhism, religions like that, they all lean heavier on the experience end of the continuum than the belief or understanding or knowledge kind of level. So I always think it's humorous when somebody's explaining a sutra to you, because sutras and Zen teaching are not about explaining anything to you. They're about pointing you or pushing you towards having some kind of experience. Does that make sense? If you think of a better way to explain it, please tell me. So these two, you'll notice they're all, those four great vows all point to something beyond thinking, because they say it's infinite and you have to get it, or it's, what does it say?
Save them all, cut through them all, learn them all.
Yeah, but what's it say at the beginning? That they're what?
Numberless.
Numberless? Then what?
Endless.
Endless.
Infinite.
Infinite.
And inconceivable.
And inconceivable. So all those things point to before thinking, right? So if it's inconceivable, the only alternative you have is something beyond thinking. Because what it's saying is you can't think about it because it's inconceivable, which is kind of cool. But if you look at Christianity, has that too. Nobody's telling you what God is. They want you to pray to Him. I never got how they knew it was a hymn. They want you to pray to Him, and then what? Right? So they also are about something that's before thinking, except they want you to think a lot about about the before thinking part, or something. I don't know. I never could figure it out. Anyway, Buddhism is about intent. I vow to do something. Well, there is no I, and the vows are infinite, so what the hell does it mean, right? So those are just that's why we call them fingers pointing at the moon. The moon doesn't give a crap if you're pointing at it or not. It does what it does, right? Any other questions? Meaningless questions that I can't answer.
So if there is no I, then who is saving all beings?
So her question is, if there is no I, who is it that saves all beings? Well, first of all beings don't exist. We just think about them. So there's nobody to save, and now they're saved. So yeah, who is that? That's a really good question. So that's a before thinking question also, what she asked me. So I'm off the hook because there isn't an answer. So thank you for getting me off the hook. Any other questions?
Hi, I know the self is a delusion, but in the current climate in this country with the election, and there's such visible division, and it's very much a pick a binary side.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering if you have any words.
Yeah, me too.
To because the division and is, it's
Inconceivable.
yeah, and I want to have wholesome desires and intentions for all beings, and yet I'm inundated with reasons to divide and pick a side. So it's really been difficult. So thank you.
Yeah, that's true all the time. Yesterday we had a group of communists came here to meet in one of our rooms, use one of our rooms. I was thinking, wow, a group of communists, that's great. And then I started thinking, well, what kind of communists were they? And that's true of any of our political parties. If you say it's Republicans versus Democrats, well, that's practically to me, that's a meaningless statement, because Democrats are all over the place, and Republicans are all over the place too, and you experience that all the time. It is kind of interesting that there's a woman running. I thought, hey, that's cool. So this weekend there was I don't know what they call it exactly, an encyclical, is that how you say it, conference with the Pope. And one of the issues he wanted to bring up was women in the Catholic Church. A great topic. But it got sidelined by everybody, pushed it off to the side. So I wouldn't say Buddhism was blameless in that issue, but it tends to be fairly non-gender. Although one interesting thing is that when women become nuns, they take 100 more precepts than monks. So I took we take 250, but nuns take 350. So then you might be wondering, well, wow, that's discriminating against women. But if you read them, it's kind of interesting. They're all things to protect them because they're women, right? So that doesn't mean that women aren't discriminated against in Buddhism. So I don't know, if I was voting, I would probably vote because it's a man and a woman. I'd vote for the woman. That's my big issue. Well, that didn't have much point, but it is something, right?
Well, I look at this list here,
And they're all men.
and they're all men.
That's right. And it's not because women didn't get recognized, it's because they aren't recognized like in these kind of lists, So, like our school is headed by a woman, right? That's good. But, women can be just as bad as men. That's why I think they're equal with us. But you don't see them as much because they're not in positions of power usually, unless you're in a matriarchal society somewhere. Yes, please. Uh-oh, here comes a hard question.
So you might not be able to talk so much about it, but we keep on pointing that there's no you and there's no I and who's sitting up there talking and those kinds of things. Okay, then but there is something. Or you might say this. I guess what you would say the absolute. Then how could you look at that and deal with that in terms of the war in Gaza and these other places, and how we're supposed to deal with things as human beings?
Right. So the main point of that kind of language is don't attach to it, right? So, like when I look at like Gaza, I can't decide anything because actually I'm for both sides, but I'm also against what both sides are doing. So this being for both is like equal. Like I'm not for one side or the other, and I'm not for what they're doing and what they're not, and I'm not for what they're doing, and I'm not for what. So again, I always think of these kind of questions as pointing towards something which is like, what'd you say, inconceivable? Absolute, right. So we use the word absolute as completely meaningless, right? So we might say, well, the absolute is completely empty. Well, what the hell does that mean? So all these things are pointing to something that, they're just pointing at something to push you in a particular direction. So in Zen, that's always towards love and compassion for all beings. That's the great vow, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these statements here, they also, what does that mean? But they're pointing you towards something. So that means don't attach to it, right? So if I met an Israeli Jewish person and a Palestinian Muslim person, they're both persons, and they both, well, maybe they don't, but they both would believe in God. And then you can argue about, is it the same God? Is Allah like the Christian God or the Buddhist God or the Islamic God or thank God we don't have God in Buddhism. But we're actually using words that you would use to talk about God, like that, right? But we don't have that particular idea. because the Buddha didn't think it was useful in terms of teaching people. So it's about how is it used. In other words, it's a kind of a practical, very down-to-earth practical thing. And so I always thought, in my life, that certain kinds of teaching, it's not that teachings are right or wrong, but some of them are more useful than others. And I always thought that when I started studying Buddhism, I was really bad because I would steal ideas from Buddhism and then use them in Western philosophy. That's really bad. You don't want to do that. But it's really funny because, they figured out things in the 5th century that Western philosophers like Heidegger or Husserl or somebody like that, they hadn't figured that out in the 20th century. So you just grab something out of there and then you can use it, right? But neither one of them actually knows. It's just that some are better than others in terms of creating what we call this don't know mind, which is all the don't know mind is, it doesn't mean you don't know, because nobody can know. What it means is you're not attached to any idea. So it's kind of like pragmatism or something. You use the words that work the best to produce the result. The result is helping all beings, help save all beings from suffering. So then you want to look at, are the words that the people are using, are they promoting suffering? So you might argue that, well, let's see, the Iranians are Shia Muslims, and the Gaza Muslims are Sunnis, right? And then, well, they really don't like each other, right? And then the Jewish people jump in on top of that, and then we jump in on top of that. We're supposedly Christian. I don't know what that means. And and it just goes on and on and on and on. So what's creating the differences between these people is attachment to an idea, right? And that's what those 4 vows are phrased in a way to take away your attachment to a particular kind of idea and point you in a certain direction so you can do something that leads to non-attachment and love and compassion. That's the vague general idea. But how you do that, nobody knows. But we try. Right? So we have these talks. So already you're thinking, oh God, what did he say? 5 minutes after the talk, you won't remember a word I said. So there you go. But the whole thing is this direction, towards love and compassion, whether it's your 3-year-old kid running out in the street or what's his name? It's not Thomas. The Trump guy, what's his name? Donald Trump, right? That was Thomas Trump. Yeah. So it's your job to help them, to be compassionate towards them and loving. And usually we don't do that. But it's also funny, you encounter these people talking about stuff, like I've never met Kamala Harris, and I don't even know if I know any policy that she's advocating, right? So it happens all the time that we encounter these people like on TV or on the radio, or your friends are talking about them, like, Mark, you have to vote for Kamala, or Kamala, excuse me, Kamala, not Peter or somebody. But you don't even know when I say that, you know what I'm saying, but you don't know what it means. Any other questions?
Kind of a question.
Any other questions that I can't answer?
Well, I don't know if this is going to help then. But teaching I received recently from another lineage is that whatever you receive from somebody, you only return love. So you kind of transform it by by having a strong center and just nourishing and taking care of the world like that.
Right.
But I don't know, from our lineage, it's more like become one, right? We become one.
Yeah, they mean the same thing, they're just said differently. So you'll encounter, like for Zen, how many, God, there's probably thousands of Zen teachers in the United States. They all talk different. But the behind thing, the before thinking thing is we say the same, but that's also an idea. Right? It's just the way it is. So some people don't like particular kinds of teaching, like they want to have, they want to do Rinzai style from Linchi Zen Master, right? And then others want to do Soto style. But like Korean Zen emerged before the separation between Soto and Rinzai, because it's much older than that stuff, right? So, but that happens all the time with religions. You say, Jesus is like 2,000 years ago? Are you kidding? That's like yesterday, right? The Buddha is 600 years before that. Yeah.
So a lot of the Middle Eastern religions, as we speak of them, they have these books that also point them in certain directions. And also in Buddhism and Zen, we have books, but we don't have like a central book.
Right.
And so could you speak about that?
Yeah, right. So, well, in my opinion, we do. It's called the Platform Sutra. But if you read it, you'll see it's just what? The Platform Sutra.
Platform Sutra.
Platform Sutra for Zen, but it also is just a bunch of verbal mush, So lately I've been studying the Bible, and the Bible is just full of all these contradictions, like Mary was a virgin, for example. Well, that only appears in two relatively obscure places in the whole Bible, so what does it mean? It has a meaning. And there's all this other stuff besides the Bible, So, I don't know. It's better to practice and find out for yourself. And then you can understand what these people are saying. Yeah.
You say the Platform Sutra. What about the Heart Sutra?
Yeah, right. Good one.
You recommend it?
What?
You recommend
The Heart Sutra? Yeah, but if you read it, it's... It doesn't explain anything, it's just making some statements. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Well, what's a sentient being, and what does it mean to save, and what does it mean them all? What does that mean, right? So, if you start looking at any religious text, I think in any religion, it's all like, what? So that's why it's better to think of texts as pointing at something, like they're directing your mind towards the moon or something, That's why I think we should be called Moonism, except that there's the Moonies. Who were the Moonies? From the old days.
Another Korean.
A Korean? Oh, right, from Reverend Moon
Right.
in South Korea, right? I remember now. Right. So that's a version of Christianity. But then there is the moon in English. That's English. Anyway, I recommend practicing and don't attach to anything that any teacher says, particularly me. And then you'll know, right? Because when you bite into the hot dog, then you have an experience and you actually know something rather than me telling you that Heinz ketchup is the best on the hot dog. You have to believe that. Well, you all know that Heinz ketchup is probably mostly sugar and crap. Right. Well, maybe you're better off with relish rather than ketchup. Maybe. But, it's your job to go and find out for yourself. I'm not going to tell you which is better. I don't like either one, but, that's just me. So that's the way it is with religion, too. So most religion I think of as Heinz ketchup. But you have Heinz ketchup in Korea, don't you? Of course. It's everywhere. So there you go. Well, thank you for listening.
So just a couple of announcements to go ahead and close this out. Thank you both for your talks today. First, we have a couple of meditation retreats coming up. The first is going to be a 2-day retreat with Dennis Dermeyer Jita Popsanin. This is going to be November 2nd through the 3rd. You can do one day or both. If you choose to do both days, then accommodation will be provided here at the Zen Center for you to be able to really focus on your retreat and your practice. So the overnight retreats are always a good experience. Following that, we're going to have a Christian Buddhist retreat with Zen Master Dae Kwang. This is going to be a 1-day on Saturday, November 16th. And then we're going to have our annual 7-day winter retreat with Zen Master Sung Hyung, that's Bobby Rhodes, the guiding teacher of the Kwan School of Zen. And this is going to be December 8th through the 14th. Speaking of retreats, it is not too late to start thinking about Winter Kyolche. Winter Kyolche is our intensive long meditation retreat up at the beautiful Diamond Hill Zen Monastery, where you can sit in intervals of a week up to 3 months. We do require you to already have some retreat experience with us in our tradition before going up there, just to maintain the harmony and together action that occurs up at Kyolche. So Kyolche registration is open with the partial teacher schedule posted online. Following that, we are going to be having a precept ceremony. This is going to be on Buddha's Enlightenment Day on Saturday, December 7th. If you're finding that this practice really connects with you and you want to affirm your commitment to our style in this practice, then consider taking precepts and supporting our Zen Center. To take precepts, you need to have participated in at least 4 days of meditation retreat. So if you have questions, please speak to Kwan Heng Sanim or Zen Master Dae Kwang. And you can check the Kwan School of Zen webpage for deadlines. There are a lot of other events happening in November. So I encourage all of you to check out the board. We're going to be having a town hall, a trail marking and cleaning event. There's going to be a yard sale, a gift shop clearance sale, a Zensgiving dinner, volunteer appreciation, etc., etc. So please subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media to stay really up to date on everything going on. If you only come on Sundays, we also do have a very large Wednesday practice that the public likes to attend as well, although all of our practices are open to the public. But every Wednesday night at 5:30, we have a vegetarian communal dinner in addition to our evening practice with our chanting and meditation. So please consider coming to that if you'd like to explore the other aspects of our practice and have the opportunity to do some one-on-one interviews with our Zen masters and teachers here. In addition to that, we also offer a refuge recovery program. This is for anyone struggling with addiction in any shape or form. Oh, it has? We do not have a refuge recovery program. Then permanently canceled, or?
It's ending this Tuesday.
But they do have online programs that people can look for.
Okay, well, it seems that this Tuesday will be our last refuge recovery meeting here then. But if this is something that relates and connect to you, please, it's a wonderful group and organization. Check them out online for support and resources and local meetings. Last and not least, practice is always free. Electricity and heating is not. If you would like to help support us, we do very gratefully accept donations and in fact rely on them for 30 to 40% of our annual expenses to keep this place open. So if you find this practice resonates with you, if you'd like to help support us and keep these doors open for anyone to come and practice free of charge, please consider donating generously, either at the donation box near the front or online at providencezen.org. You could also consider becoming a member of the school, in which your monthly payment will help sustain the organization and give you discounts on retreats and some other benefits as well. Or, of course, you can always volunteer your time, in which you can speak to Kwan Heng Sneem or Danielle, who I don't think is here, about that as well. Okay. Fantastic. We also have a small Dharma store, which is going to be open as well if you're new here. So if you'd like to pick up some meditation pants, incense, some books for yourself, please do check it out. So thank you all so much for coming. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Honey, how are you?
No, I talked to you about that before. You keep showing up. I know you. Where do but I saw you online too. I'm sure I saw you online. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
It's better in person, huh?
Of course.
It's beautiful weather.
It's gorgeous. So
I already went out for a walk this morning. It's so beautiful out there.
we'll have a great day. I'm going to head to spend time with my mom.
Yeah, good. Good to see you. Hey, Tom.
So what's the word?
About
Friday.
Sure.
Does Friday work?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm going back to New York on the 7th. Hey, George. Good to see you.
7.
It's always good to
Hey,
see
George.
you.
Yeah, so then this Friday is the 1st. That would be good.
Yeah.
Do you like the Garden Grill or something?
Yeah, that's fine. It's totally fine.
I can meet you actually because I finish at 12. Let's see if I'm literally like a 5-minute walk. I can meet you like at 12:15 or 12:20. Okay. What's good for you?
Good time. It's like the morning is the busy time in the temple. After 10 o'clock even, I'm free. And I'm doing a lot of work now, but by Friday I should have it under control.
All right. Well,
I'll make time for that. That's no problem.
Okay. So
I'm happy to do
you want to meet like at 12:20 or 12:30 or whatever's good for you?
Sounds good.
12:20?
12:20.
At the Garden Grill. All right. Okay. Great. I will see you there.
I see your wife made it.
She did, yeah. Yeah, she's better. Oh, yeah, no, she's better. She had a big day yesterday. Now she's pooped out. She got really tired now. But she's doing much better. But if she does a lot, then she kind of has to recover one day. By tomorrow, she'll probably be better. But she's doing much better. Thank you.
It's good to see you. Yeah. Like just, get out of the house and move around.
Yeah, she's been getting out quite a bit.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
Great. All right, well, I look forward to that.
Me too.
12:20 at Garden Grill Friday. Great.
I really do.
Okay, thank you.
It's just like I got kind of too busy in New York to get away with us.
Oh, that's okay.
I mean, I did come back on that.
You said you needed to work out. Yeah.
Brian, how's it going?
It's just kind of, it's a much bigger project than I thought.
Yeah. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah, I'll kind of go over it.
Okay. No, they go by that tape there. Because all this stuff's going to come out.